third criteria is technological advancement. So we started off with a technical problem. You're trying to solve that via an experimental approach, and as a result, you've created an innovation or are learning as a result. Okay? Now, generally, this requires identifying new software constructs, architectures, techniques, or technologies which help advance your company's understanding of computer science. But it doesn't have to be. It ideally stretches the boundaries of computer science, but it can be something as simple as extending the knowledge of your own company in the field of computer science. Something that you may not have known before how to solve can still be eligible for this, as long as the solution is something that is not in the public domain. Okay, so if you can go out and you've got a technical problem and you can go out and Google the solution for it, or you can talk to a subject matter expert down the road who works at a sister company and says, this is the solution, this is fairly straightforward, that's not going to apply. It's got to be something that legitimately advances your knowledge of computer science. Okay. Now, as a claimant and as a computer science professional, you are reasonably expected to know what is the existing state-of-the-art in the industry. So software, as you all know, is an industry that evolves continuously, that changes so quickly in comparison to regular industries. So you need to be able to keep up and know what is the state-of-the-art and what would represent an innovation in that particular space. Now, to be able to measure an advancement, to be able to clearly identify that, it's very helpful to be able to identify baseline and document what is that state-of-the-art at the beginning of your project. So you've got a technical problem, how are we going to solve it? Are there solutions available out there in industry already that can help solve that? Okay? And if there are not, make a note of it. Make a note of what you've searched to find out if there's a solution for that. Keep those records, it's very important. Now, one of the very important points I want to make here is that novelty or unique features do not necessarily make you eligible to submit an SR&ED claim. Okay, so an example of this, in fact, one of our clients developed some very unique health insurance software. In fact, they were one of the first companies in the world to introduce that. And they were very excited and said, therefore, we must be able to apply for SR&ED. This is something new that nobody has ever developed before. And unfortunately, the answer is not necessarily. You're only eligible to apply if you meet those three criteria that we talked about. So within that health insurance software, there were elements of eligibility. So for example, they had developed the software for several thousand users, and as they grew, needed this to support several 100,000 users. And all of a sudden, there were some significant technical challenges involved in that software development. It's that aspect of that health insurance software project that is the eligible portion that you can claim for SR&ED, not the entire project. And I'll show you some graphics in the next few slides that will articulate that more clearly. So to be able to demonstrate an advancement, as I said, it's very helpful to be able to quantify a baseline, identify what your targets are, and what did you actually achieve. Now, not all of the work that you do can be quantified, but there could be some applicable examples. So your software may use 50% less memory, or may be able to run 50% faster. So where you can, try and document. Where are you now? What are you trying to do? And what did you actually achieve? Because that in itself is going to be able to demonstrate that you've made some type of advancement. Okay. If you can, try and characterize why the solution that you've developed or the architecture hasn't been used before. How does it compare with earlier solutions that your company may have developed, or solutions that are out in the industry? Now, another important point here is that it's the attempt at the advancement that the government is looking for. So in many cases, companies have invested significant funds in developing new technologies, and those projects have utterly failed. Right? And they've shelved those projects and have stopped them entirely. They weren't successful. But those projects are actually inherently eligible for SR&ED. Because the project has failed, and if it's failed for a technical reason, not for a business reason, but for a technical reason that you've run into a challenge, you've inherently demonstrated that there was technical uncertainty. So failed projects are actually some of the best projects to actually claim for SR&ED. Now, we've talked a little about some of the formal definitions. There is an informal test that I would also suggest if you're really not sure whether a project is going to be eligible, is an acid test of, what would your peers say? If you were to stand up in a forum of your peers and say, this is what I've developed, this is the application or the construct or the new innovation that I've developed, what do you think? And chances are the people around the room would say, that's pretty difficult to do. I'm not quite sure how I would solve that problem. They scratch their head. There's a good chance that you may have an eligible project. But if it's something that is routine within your industry that everybody would say, I know how to do that, that would just be a matter of some routine coding, chances are you're not going to have an eligible project. So that's a little bit more of an informal test. But as always, meeting those three criteria is going to be the test of eligibility. So as I said, just to wrap up and summarize, you've got a technical uncertainty, a systematic approach, which is your technical content to resolving that uncertainty, and it's your attempt at advancement, which can be a success or a failure. And all three of these criteria are necessary for you to have an eligible SR&ED project. So we've talked about what's eligible. We'll spend a few moments now on talking about what's not eligible. Well, uncertainties that are resolvable via access to publicly available information. So as I said, if you have a solution that is available that you can Google search and find out how to solve, it's not going to be eligible. Okay. Routine quality control generally is not eligible, but if it's done by a developer and it's done in support of resolving that uncertainty, you can certainly have eligible activities. But quality control by users, generally not. Again, because they're not doing that testing in support of resolving uncertainty. It's basically just to make sure that the program is working and tested all of the bugs. Software developed for in-house managerial reporting, generally not eligible unless there's some unique technology or advance that's been made. GUI development, again, generally not eligible, nor is routine software upgrades or maintenance activities in general. Now, debugging and problems that are solved through trial and error can be claimed, again, as long as they're in direct support of resolving those technical uncertainties. So hopefully this gives you some idea of what is not eligible to claim in the project.